Next up, we have cybersecurity in an increasingly virtual world with Safi Mojidi. Okay, Safi has over 13 years of cybersecurity consulting experience, specializing in cloud security, and has supported clients such as NASA and the Office of the Vice President, and is a current doctoral student and cybersecurity researcher. As an experienced cloud security practitioner, he is experienced in defending all cloud deployment models with many cloud service providers. By implementing a holistic and risk-based methodology to cybersecurity, Safi takes a hands-on implementation of sound information security practices through thought and servant leadership diversity. During this special talk, we'll hear from Safi about his current projects, including his work on TransTech Social Community Advisory Board and what's next in cybersecurity in an increasingly virtual world. And we also have PowerToFly's Marcela Bomfim will moderate. And I will turn it over to both of you if you're here. I think they're just coming in, connecting right now. That's okay. Okay, Safi is connecting while they are Okay, Safi, there you are.
Hi there.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I love that you're in a giant sound booth right now.
I love music, so it's kind of fitting. I really love music.
Yeah, it's if you just like turn this way, it's like you're speaking into the microphone. There you go. Or I guess maybe it's on that side. Yeah, you got the spit guard. Great, 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 great. And I think Marcela has just joined the chat. Here we are.
Hey, hi everyone. Glad to be here.
Hello. Great to have you. I will turn it over to Safi and Marcela.
Thank you, Hunter. So, Safi, nice to be with you. Yeah, happy Friday, everyone.
Yes.
And let's go. Safi has prepared some material about cybersecurity, and let's hear about it.
Okay. You want to start with the first question, or should I just kind of give it to?
Yeah, just a moment.
Okay.
So, Safi, we can start this conversation with some insight into you and your career journey so far.
Okay.
So tell us what motivated you to conduct this research on cybersecurity.
Sure. So I have been in cybersecurity for almost about 15 years. And when I first joined cybersecurity industry, I had very little insight into cybersecurity, period. So I had been in the workforce for a few years. And as I began learning more about the field, my passion for cyber really began to grow. Um, I've had opportunities in the field supporting people like NASA, Office of the Vice President, and now I am supporting Slack. So right now I'm a senior technical program manager at Slack, where I help ensure project success by developing strong relationships with our teammates, cross-functional partners, leaders of the or other parts of the organization. I really try to bring a security-first mindset to how we're building and supporting internal and external products, particularly strategies around technical debt management, logging and alerting for systems, minimizing attack surfaces for Slack's internal infrastructure and customer-facing applications. And I really try to make sure I'm helping organizations focus on building secure and inclusive technology by promoting collaborative culture across all types of the parts of the organization. So engineers, project managers, compliance, and other cross-functional teams who play a really big role in the delivery of products that essentially will impact our everyday lives. So I really got involved in cybersecurity as a practitioner, doing development, security operations, compliance, and then my role has kind of transformed into more leadership and project management and providing guidance and advisory services to my clients.
Security, great career in cybersecurity. You have some tips you can give for users how to be more proactive in like protecting their privacy online, what to do, what to don't, and I mean just some tips you can give for us.
Sure. Yeah, so I'd like to tell people, it's just as important to protect your hardware as it is your software. So
Mm,
if you're using a computer or laptop, if you have full disk encryption available, so most computers these days have it. If you have a Mac, you can utilize File Vault. If you have a Windows computer, you can use BitLocker. And both of those come native with each of their respective operating systems. So, that's kind of the base minimum you can start doing from a hardware perspective. And then another tip I like to tell people, particularly if you are, working in, communal areas, WeWork, public areas, Starbucks, airport, things like that. You definitely want to make sure you have a VPN. So a VPN is a virtual private network. And what that does is essentially creates an encrypted tunnel that prevents people from seeing the traffic that you're both sending and receiving. And it also can be used to disguise or hide your IP address, so folks don't really know where you are actually located. Then from the software side, I think it's very important that people start to use strong passwords. So strong passwords are typically passwords that either use a passphrase or have some combination of number, letter, special character, uppercase and lowercase letters. At this point, that isn't even enough. So at this point, I highly recommend people using multi-factor authentication in addition to just using a regular password. So I think sometimes people get overwhelmed with having to remember passwords. So on average these days, I think most adults are managing or needing to remember over 100 passwords. And so, unless you're using the same passwords for all of your accounts, which I highly discourage, it is nearly impossible to remember all those passwords. So, you can use a password manager like OnePass, LastPass. Those are some examples. If you were to do a Google search, those are pretty popular ones that'll come up. In addition to using both a strong password and a password manager to store your passwords, I also recommend using multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication, or MFA, is an authentication method that really helps the application or service that you're logging into provide a more robust security mechanism for access control. So instead of just asking for a username and password, it will also ask you for additional credentials. So that's either something you have, something you know, or something you are. What I mean by that is something is, it could ask you a security question. So what was your first car, for example, right? It's information that only you, for the most part, or people close to you would know, and hopefully the people close to you aren't trying to compromise your accounts. Then the something you have, that could be something like a hardware or software token, or something that sends you, or a device, one-time password that's sent to a device via text message, Google Authenticator. So I think it's very important for folks to understand, like, there needs to be defense in depth, is what we call it in the cyber industry. Basically, creating as many gates to having access to your information or accounts as possible for anyone who's trying to hack in or potentially compromise your account. So if you have used Equifax, if you have Facebook, if you've gone to Home Depot or Target in the past 4 or 5 years, you more than likely have been compromised. Your account has been compromised, and so there are resources that you can use. There's one called "Have I Been Pawned?" PWNED, and you basically can go to that site and you can enter your email address. And what they do is correlate all breaches that have happened, significant breaches, and they're able to tell you whether or not your account has been compromised. So those are just some tips that I would recommend.
Yeah, so they great tips. Even for myself, like I do use it to the VPN and the password manager application, but kinda this is the basic, and like we have so much more where we can uh, working on and keeping your safe. Like yeah, I like the tips, great tips, um, and so talking about your career journey again, like can you please share with us some findings during your research, like for who give you for those tips? Yeah,
Sure.
please share with us.
Sure. I'm currently in the last year of my doctoral program. So I'm finishing up my dissertation, and my research area is really focused on the intersection of vulnerable populations and how they interact with technology. And so one of the things I really wanted to identify or study was as we are certainly moving towards ubiquitous access to resources, specifically cloud services, and we're seeing struggles with folks, um, economically disadvantaged people who do not have constant or persistent access to the internet. And so as a result, they're using their mobile phones as a primary mechanism for accessing the internet. And so some of the issues that I wanted to kind of explore are based on this new avenue for access to technology. What are some of the barriers to ensuring that everyone who uses that technology has equitable access to ensuring their privacy? So I'm really wanting to study, or my study will be conducted on black people in the DMV area. So the DMV means District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. And I'm going to study whether or not folks have access to the internet, and then if they're using their smartphone, for example, for all of their telehealth appointments, potentially, doing school assignments, going to school on Zoom. Are they using? Are they also using these devices to, play games and do other things that could potentially open up the threat vector for access to their private data, to, for less, serious reasons in terms of medically necessary or educate from an education perspective. So I really want to have a better understanding, because I think there is, because of the lack of diversity in technology, there are a lot of there's a lot of software and technology that is created from primarily one homogeneous demographic, right? And so we're talking about potentially white males and sometimes cishet white males in the tech industry. The United States is made up of 13% black people, and in the tech industry, and black people are only represented by 7% in the tech industry. So that is a huge disadvantage in terms of some of the technological advances we're seeing. Specifically, things like machine learning and artificial intelligence, right? There was an article a few years ago that came out. An employer was using a machine learning algorithm to determine candidates for a job. Unfortunately, the machine learning algorithm was designed in a way that it looked at where a candidate went to college, and if that candidate went to a college that was traditionally aligned with, being a women's college, a lot of those candidates were immediately removed from being a good candidate for that job. So we're already seeing, tons of examples that technology is deployed in environments, both, neighborhoods that are marginally or economically disadvantaged, and the folks who are there are either unaware of its existence or unaware of how the technology works, right? So what I really want to get to the bottom of is, kind of furthering the conversation around the need for diversity in tech, but certainly how is that impacting minorities, particularly who are very dependent on mobile technology to facilitate their everyday lives.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The technology can completely transform environments, and even I believe the pandemic for sure has affected this, and I would like you to talk more about um, how has the pandemic affected the cybersecurity.
Sure. So since the beginning of the pandemic, so we're about over a little over a year now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
cybercrime has risen more than 600%. So that is an astronomical number if you look at the number of cyber attacks we were already facing prior to COVID. So cyber attacks can be anything from a phishing attack. So if someone were to click on a malicious link in an email, and then we're looking at some of the larger scale cyber attacks, such as the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack that happened a few weeks ago. So that forced key systems to be taken offline. It temporarily halted the fuel flow through several areas of the United States. So I think as we've migrated to a primarily work from home environment, it is forcing companies to have to really take a good look at their cybersecurity practices, and certainly us as consumers. So it's not just a consumer problem, and it's not just a business and bottom line problem. The effects of COVID and just the advancements in technology are the cybersecurity industry is not able to keep up. So in the U.S. alone, there are about 500,000 open cybersecurity positions. So, and globally, that number is somewhere around 4 million. Unfortunately, in the tech field, sometimes when there are not enough people or practitioners, often technology and processes are created as a stopgap and sometimes a solution. Unfortunately, that the lack of diversity in cybersecurity becomes more than just a technology problem. Right now, it becomes a societal issue that is potentially removing the level, the even or preventing a level playing field for people to get jobs, housing, access to financial resources. So it's really an environment that it's strife for growth in terms of job opportunity for many people. And COVID particularly has really illuminated the need for more cybersecurity practitioners.
Great, and yeah, we see such impact either for users and for companies, right? And you have some. I imagine you have some tips either for companies as well, how to manage all of these increasing numbers and how to make sure you are protected. And I mean, even for a company, how you can make sure your data customers will be protected, and even for these increasing numbers in the pandemic.
Right, absolutely. So I think one of the major things that I think is very important is increasing diversity in tech. I think if we continue to promote the lack of inclusion and diversity in the tech space, unfortunately, we're going to continue to end up in the same place we are in terms of homogeneous technology and not really taking into consideration entire demographics of people as we're building
Mhm.
technologies. And so one of the things I'm really focused on is, doing as much as I can in our community, LGBTQ specifically, and definitely the Black demographic, to expose people to careers in tech and help them understand that it's not, it's not as hard as people might think it is. It certainly is hard
Mhm.
work, but there are plenty of different opportunities and avenues for people to get into tech and cybersecurity. Actually, one of the reasons why I founded a startup called Hacking the Workforce. So, Hacking the Workforce is committed to building a world with equal representation of Black LGBTQ people in cybersecurity. Um, I know how hard it is to be a marginalized minority in the tech field, and I know that there are other people out there. And so the lack of cybersecurity, like I said, is a problem for all of us. And it's something that we all need to work together, allies and LGBTQ people in tech. We need to work together to try to come up with a solution to this problem.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, how can we be more proactive in this area? How to be how to give more voice for these people, and how we can make sure they are um, giving the attention they need.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not going to change overnight. I think it's very important for not only um, the allies to show up, but us as LGBTQ people, right? I think as we continue to fight for equal rights just in our everyday lives, I think it's also important to show up at work. Um, eh, but of course, that's not possible if we don't feel safe and we don't feel like we are going to be protected or treated unfairly due to our gender identity or sexual orientation. So I think it really is a cooperative effort between not only our own community but certainly the allies and folks who are in positions of power to change some of the operating principles that are running rampant in the tech industry.
Yeah, and that's what you are working currently. That's what you working in your current project, the TransTech Social. And can you tell more about um, the actions you have in this project, and
Sure.
how people can find this?
Sure. So TransTech is an incubator for LGBTQ talent. We focus on empowering the T or transgender in our community. So we really look for opportunities to work with people to help them develop their skills and certainly ensure that other people value or understand that marginalized LGBTQ communities can a huge productive role in the tech world. So TransTech, all of our members have access free of charge to online community events, conferences, employment opportunities. They have access to reduced or free training from some of our very generous partners. We recently, yesterday actually, just rolled out a scholarship opportunity for a partnership that we have with the Linux Foundation. So, those are the types of partnerships that we aim to build to continue to grow our community of tech, very valuable and capable tech resources to certainly increase the diversity numbers and provide people options for meaningful and gainful employment in this country.
Yeah, that sounds great. And actually, we have some time for a question from the public. So if you have any question, just drop in the chat. We can ask them for Safi. So for now, Safi, can you tell more about, I mean, the next steps, maybe where we can be in the next year? Do you have an idea in your research
Yeah,
how we can evolve from here?
sure. Yes. Again, I think there are a lot of organizations and programs that are very invested in increasing or elevating the status of LGBTQ people into the tech space. I think there have not been a ton of studies done that really quantify the number of LGBTQ people in cybersecurity specifically. But if we look at the numbers for tech as a whole, it's pretty gloomy when you look at how the numbers haven't really risen. But I feel like in the next few years, based on a lot of the programming that we're seeing coming out of issues related to unfairness and bias at work, whether it's implicit or intentional. I think there are a lot of good diversity and inclusion efforts that are really meaningful and are centering the right types of people to ensure that inclusion is something that is built into pipelines, while removing some of the toxic cultures and potentially excuse me, and potentially toxic people who have kind of been the gatekeepers for people trying to get into technology, and really not only increasing the diversity numbers, but you know increasing the diversity of thought and our ability as a nation to protect ourselves against other nations, against hackers, people who are just really out there to that make a business out of stealing people's information, and potentially putting our health and safety at risk.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just like believing this progress we can have, and um, I feel I feel like we need to keep going on this direction, and we can see the results, and we are seeing this. And well, for now, I have a question for you from Lydia. She asked, do you have any more resources you can recommend to learn more about cybersecurity in simple terms?
Yes, I just dropped a link into the chat. I hope Lydia can see that. Um, the CISA, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, is a federal agency, and they are essentially responsible for cybersecurity in the United States when it comes to certainly like federal systems, but how to empower uh, people in America with the right types of tools and understanding of
Mm-hmm.
cybersecurity. So I think that's a really good resource. It definitely gets you into it stays at a level where it's simple terms and it's not too technically um, involved. So I think that's a really good resource, a good place to start for sure.
Yeah, that's a great research. We have some terms, and yeah, absolutely a great point start. I have one more question from Craig. Um, could you please repeat some of the protection tools you mentioned?
Sure. So some of the tools I mentioned from a hardware perspective, again, if you're using a Mac, you should be encrypting your entire hard drive, so full disk encryption. And you can use
Mm-hmm.
a native application on your Mac, which is called File Vault. The other mechanism, if you have a Windows computer, you can use it's called BitLocker. And so both of those come native on either of those operating systems. In terms of the software perspective, using strong passwords, using multi-factor authentication, using a password manager, those are all really good ways to manage access to your accounts. Um, and I think another option is using a VPN, particularly when you are out in public, on a Wi-Fi at Starbucks or at an airport, for example. I think those are some pretty good basic ones that we should all be using every day.
Yeah, for sure. I will definitely adopt some tips from you. Uh, so yeah, I think we already in time. I'm not sure if we have time for one more question.
I think we're going to go to a pre recorded interview next, which might be starting in just a few minutes. So if you want to take one more question, that might be doable, or we can wrap up. This has been great. Okay,
Yeah,
well, I
so
guess on that note, yeah, well, we'll wrap it up. Well, thank you so much, Marcela, Safi. This has been absolutely fantastic.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you for that. I was taking all these notes down. I'm like, oh, I got to update some passwords. I use LastPass, but even that I'm still a little lazy with. So I need to do some upkeep. So thank you for the reminder.
You're very welcome.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.